there's something called narcissistic amnesia, and it's not literal. It's not literal memory loss. It's the way a narc rewrites events or minimizes the harm that they cause you, and they'll rage and scream at you for bringing up anything that hurt you, and they demand that you move on from things that are still very fresh and real in your mind and very painful. I know this firsthand, because the first time I caught him after we were married, I literally just found out when I saw the text messages between him and that bitch. He's the real bitch, by the way. But I confronted him, and instead of accountability, he was angry with me. It just happened. After I went to my mom's for a few days, I came home, and I made plans to go with my sister to New York, just to get away from him for a little while. He was yelling at me to get over it. He was telling me that I was going to keep on living in the past, and 20 years later I'm going to still be talking about it. That's what he accused me of. He was yelling at me. No accountability whatsoever, no explaining his actions. And this was just not months later. It was immediately after I came back home and confronted him with it. And of course, when I left to New York, he was still seeing that bitch. But I was told, again, that's all I wanted to do, was live in the past. That's called gaslighting. It was his really failed attempt to make my normal response, my response to his betrayal, and my grief and my shock about it, that was his attempt to minimize my emotions. And he was attempting to make me sound like the irrational one or the excessive one. But here's the hypocrisy. Throughout the entire length of our tumultuous, I know I said that wrong, I don't care, tumultuous marriage, the person who was actually living in the past wasn't me. It was never me. It was always him. I always talk about this. When we broke up 17 years ago and he discarded me in the same brutal manner, he moved on with other people. And eventually I found a boyfriend. I dated somebody else. Very briefly. And as I mentioned in another video later when we got back together a few months later, the narc became fixated on my previous relationship. I mean, he brought it up repeatedly throughout the years. I'd never seen him so obsessed over someone who was no longer part of my life. Besides this other person, his name was Victor, that I met in Laredo, Texas. And it was long before me and the narc got married. I was only 18 years old, and he went off to Mexico with his dad, like he usually does, and went off and cheated on me or whatever, but he claims I cheated on him. Long story. We were kids. We weren't even married. We weren't even together, but he always brought up Victor and Fernando. Point is, my soon-to-be ex-husband, who obsessed over these two people, who would tell me to get over his infidelity almost immediately. He held on to every ounce of resentment he had towards me and jealousy over the years over something that happened when we weren't even together. Both times, we were not even together. And the hypocrisy, I need to get my thoughts together. His hypocrisy didn't stop there. Before this brutal discard, he was very demeaning. He was criticizing me, not just for the way I refused to engage with his more chaotic behavior, but he was criticizing me for the way I was looking. I was looking tired. I was looking haggard. I was just getting over some very major health issues. And it was me living in survival mode on top of him criticizing me constantly, blaming me for everything. And it was just me trying to ignore that reality. The years of stress, the anxiety he put onto me, and the emotional turmoil, it really did take a real toll on me. It was hard on my body, it was hard on my mind, living in that constant tension, walking on eggshells, along with carrying that unresolved pain. Of course it changed how I looked. Of course it changed me, how I behaved. I became isolated. I was experiencing cognitive dissonance. I was in a survival mode. I became quieter. I didn't fight with him anymore. I let him ignore me. I let him talk shit about me behind my back or even to my face. Now that I'm coming out of it on the other side, I'm realizing that I was deeply hurt by somebody who I thought once loved me or cared about me, and to carry the weight of that hurt for many years, and I didn't acknowledge it. And then at the very end, to be blamed for my looks and the effects of that stress that he caused, that's on a whole nother level. I mean, that's cruel. And for him to deny that he caused me to feel that way and look that way, I mean, you will see me glow up. And I will never, ever, ever give him access to me again. This is a classic narcissistic behavior. They think that the rules are different for them. And the rules are much different for you. Your pain is dismissed. Their insecurities are treated as permanent wounds, and you need to be treating them as poor little babies. Woe is me. They're the actual victims in their mind. But yet they can talk so much shit to you, and you're supposed to just take it. Looking back, I can honestly say that after the first betrayal, that in itself led to more years of emotional turmoil. And it was just spiraling. Years that felt like living in a kind of psychological hell, walking on eggshells, being constantly blamed for everything, being manipulated, and constantly being made to question my own reality. Yeah. That's why it's very important to be aware of these patterns early on and recognize that it is not normal. It's not a normal way to live. Because these types of people who are walking around acting normal, acting even charming, and distorting everybody's sense of reality, they're going to fuck you up. You're going to believe that the way they treat you is normal, and it is not. If somebody betrays you and then demands that your silence is absurd, or they demean you for even speaking up, that's them trying to control you. And recognizing this truth can be the first step towards getting your life back.